Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this winter storm impact briefing on things that are currently happening right now. We have with us Secretary Crowfoot from the California Natural Resources Agency. We also have OES Director Nancy Ward. We also have State Climatologist Michael Anderson, as well as Secretary of Cal EPA Yana Garcia. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and kick it off to Wade.
Great. Hey, thanks so much, Reggie, and thanks all for joining this briefing. We obviously wanted to bring to you up-to-date information about these two atmospheric rivers that are coming starting tonight. And as Reggie noted, I'm just going to give a big, broad overview. I'll turn it over to Michael Anderson. He serves as our state climatologist, which actually California is fairly unique in having. And Michael is really bringing what I'll consider the world's best technology and information on atmospheric rivers to support our partners at the California Office of Emergency Services, or Cal OES, led by Nancy Ward, which is really the point of the spear on directing all of the people and assets to keep people safe during these storms. But after Mike, we're going to hear, of course, from my colleague, Yana Garcia, who leads Cal EPA. Cal EPA's boards and commissions are critical in terms of protecting a whole bunch of things during these storms, including water quality and water supply. And then, of course, we'll hear from Nancy Ward, and Nancy is directing all of this out of the State Operations Center. Just a little bit on structure as we go through our briefing. You know Cal OES, and you know they lead our response efforts regardless of what the challenge is. This week, of course, it's storms, but it's wildfires. It can be anything else. And so our State Operations Center is, running 24 hours a day. You probably saw that Governor Newsom was out there getting a briefing over the weekend. And OES is also leading what's called a unified command group discussion of our cabinet secretaries, the most recent one of which was yesterday. Their partner in understanding where these risks exist during these storms is our State Federal Joint Flood Operations Center, which our Department of Water Resources runs in collaboration with federal partners. That Flood Operations Center, which is also based here in Sacramento, is up and running, and they are really monitoring stream gauges from across the state and in contact with the local flood emergency response operators. So they're feeding information on conditions, but also needs into our State Operations Center. And that's really where they're tasking out people and assets. The good news is, of course, that we have remarkably well-organized response mechanism for floods and for storms like this. We experienced 9 atmospheric rivers during January. And so we're well drilled in what we need to do. You probably have seen that OES has directed pre-positioned assets and people around the state where we can anticipate the most acute flood risks and storm risks. And likewise, the governor has operationalized an emergency proclamation to enable us to do what we need to do quickly and effectively. So with that, let me turn it over to Mike Anderson to give us a more precise understanding of what we can expect in coming days as it relates to these atmospheric rivers, and then specifically how that information is being shared with those who can prepare to respond.
All right, thank you, Wade. So we have 2 atmospheric rivers first actually making landfall as we speak. Heavier rains and higher freezing elevations will be happening overnight, and heavy rains extending into tomorrow. The focus of the storm will actually move from north to south with a lot of impacts in the central California, central southern Sierra through Friday and into the weekend. Very short break of showers around the state on Sunday before the next one comes in on Monday. And beyond that, there may be a few others. It's too far out to get a lot of certainty out of them, but we're keeping an eye on them. How do we do this? We work with our partners with the National Weather Service and with our partners at the Center for Western Weather and Water Extreme Study, Scripps Institution of Oceanography. This partnership between the Weather Service, DWR, and Scripps enables us to bring the best technology to understand the characteristics of these atmospheric rivers and where we expect to see the heaviest precip and consequent impacts. The Flood Operations Center, as Wade mentioned, is where we have both the California Nevada River Forecast Center, which is part of the National Weather Service, as well as DWR, working together to forecast river conditions across the state. The department then will make high water notifications, coordinating that information with our local emergency responders. They coordinate in turn with the State Operations Center. We had briefings today on the weather as well as atmospheric river conditions with our local reservoir operators, as well as the Corps of Engineers and Bureau of Reclamation, anticipating what water's coming into the system and how to navigate the flood releases from reservoirs that will be occurring. You will see reservoir releases increase. Some have started today and will continue to increase into tomorrow. Others will actually cut back as downstream uncontrolled flow picks up and takes up the space in the channel systems below those reservoirs. It's all coordinated to make sure that it mitigate as much of the flood impacts as possible. We also provide notification facilitating State Operations Center with the information on where we might expect to see those impacts. Right now in the Sacramento Basin, we will expect to see our flood control system kick in with weir flow, where we have, as the river increases, we have spaces for that water to move into our flood bypasses, and we will see that happen here as we move through the weekend. In other places, you will see, as I mentioned, reservoir releases increase. In some cases, they will cut back as local stream flow comes up, but then they'll increase their releases behind it to try and manage how much water is in on the valley floor. With that, I will pass it on to our next.
Yeah, Mike, thanks so much. I think it would be helpful if we have a chat function to put a couple of websites in the chat. One is the River Forecast Center that provides really real-time information on the river levels, and it's really helpful way to see how rivers are operating in areas that various leaders represent. And then the second could be the our partner Scripps Institute of Oceanography that has really good information on atmospheric rivers and the atmospheric rivers that we're soon to experience. So folks, if they want to dig a little bit deeper, can do so. So Mike, I imagine you're going to get questions too from others when after the presentations. But let me move to Secretary Garcia, my colleague who leads California Environmental Protection Agency.
Hi, folks. Thanks for that, Wade, and thanks, Michael, for that update. I'm just going to quickly review some of the role that Cal EPA plays in these extreme weather events. Obviously, our infrastructure can be overwhelmed with these weather events. Wastewater and stormwater systems can cause sewage to mix in with stormwater that spills onto streets and waterways. These are risky issues for our people and for much of our systems, many of our infrastructure systems. So this is why it's so important that we are obviously involved in these plans for emergency response with environmental impacts in mind, namely. And now Cal EPA and the Water Board are working with Cal OES, with Nancy and her team, on evaluating areas of concern within the total 34 counties under a state of emergency proclamation to pre-position resources currently and to coordinate messaging and support as well as community outreach. We saw from the storms in January that the community outreach, particularly in languages that are accessible to all Californians, are incredibly important. We're coordinating closely as well with local, state, and federal partners to provide situational awareness and technical guidance, particularly to our local partners on water quality concerns, and are monitoring specifically for potential impacts to drinking water and wastewater services. We're also continuing to track and monitor spill reports distributed by the State Warning Center to identify potential impacts, again, to critical infrastructure. We anticipate that, similar to our work relating to the January storms, we'll continue to work closely with impacted drinking water systems in particular here. The Division of Drinking Water within the State Water Board has 26 districts that house field staff at 13 offices around the state. These are staff we're all in direct contact with and provide oversight to our water systems. The Water Board remains ready to assist in any drinking water system with water quality concerns and want to make sure that we remain in touch about this. This is one of our biggest priorities during flood conditions. When water quality is compromised, the number one priority is the safety of our public water systems and protecting health. We also are constantly looking at the threat of floodwaters in contact with household waste. I want to note here that the Department of Toxic Substances Control works also with local agencies to remove household hazardous waste. This is a really important thing to make sure that residents realize so that they're not removing household hazardous waste in the event of floods themselves. Finally, I just want to note that our agency, Cal EPA, has an online environmental complaint system that is available to the public, and we want to make sure that you have this contact information. I will drop the link in the chat as well. Thanks for that note, Wade. And we hope that you all can help us keep the word out that this complaint system can be used and deployed during emergencies as well. And we need to know when things are raised to concern for residents and for locals and our state elected officials. Thank you very much. And I will kick it over to Reggie.
Thank you, Secretary Garcia. Now I'd like to kick it over to Cal OES Director Nancy Ward.
Good afternoon. And as Wade chatted about earlier, we have a bit of experience given what happened in January and early February. But with the help of Wade's climatologist and the DWR River Forecast Center, we're using the same technology that we used back then to actually identify the vulnerable areas that we would pre-position assets to. And there are about 6 counties with 11 rivers that we have identified through this technology that will be a vulnerability, much the same as in January, quite honestly. So we have taken that and started to pre-position resources throughout the state. So far, we have pre-positioned swift water rescue teams, hand crews, high water vehicles, and OES assets to 23 different counties, including Butte, Calaveras, Contra Costa, El Dorado, Fresno, Glenn, Inyo, Kern, Los Angeles, Marin, Merced, Mendocino, Mono, Monterey, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Mateo, Santa Barbara, Tulare, Tuolumne, and Ventura counties. In addition to that, we have pre-positioned the National Guard as well in Sacramento, Stanislaus in the Modesto area, Merced, Santa Barbara, Monterey, and Sonoma. And those assets are again, high water vehicles and crews. We have some air assets regionally positioned to do air rescue should that be needed. And we are finalizing any laydown of additional resources within the next couple of days as counties continue to proclaim emergencies. As Wade said, we have a total now of 34 counties that have proclaimed emergencies. And we will continue to coordinate with those counties to get any unmet needs that they have identified or will identify as we go through these storms. As in January, this first additional atmospheric river, as Wade mentioned, on top of what already is saturated throughout the state, we're going to start to see impacts a little bit faster and a little bit more concentrated than we did in January and February. In addition to that, we may start seeing a bit of snow melt at the 4,000 foot level that will initiate more runoff than what we expected or had in January as well. So currently right now we have 4 counties with 5 shelters that have been established. That's Butte, San Bernardino, Nevada, and Tuolumne. There are 127 people under evacuation order in Madera. And there are 19,967 people as of this morning without power. The most concentrated in Nevada County. That is a long-term power outage due to the snow, due to access issues with PG&E unable to get to those areas of concern. But PG&E is also providing the homeowners and residents with supplies and assistance like generators, additional food to support them while the restoration of that power gets put on, which is anticipated hopefully by the 15th. With that, I will open it to any questions. I will say that we have also initiated our priorities populations task force that was so instrumental in the January, February storms and helping us work with some 400 community-based organizations to help with vulnerable populations and those counties where we need to get out into those rural areas and that may be having to stay or shelter in place and getting out to them to ensure that we help those counties with any unmet needs. I will say that the way you can help us is to amplify our personal preparedness messages to ensure that individuals are signed up for their community's warning systems, that they learn more about our CAL alerts and can sign up with those. If they're told to evacuate, to do so immediately, to never drive around barriers or through waters. Do not walk, swim, or drive through floodwaters. And I will just say the number of deaths that we had in January and February were all human behavioral in terms of getting into water situations which overtook them immediately. It takes 12 inches of water to float a car. And we're seeing where people really are making huge, huge mistakes in trying to get around road barriers and drive through water that they believe is shallow enough to get their vehicle through. So just would ask that you amplify that personal preparedness message. That's, I'll turn it back over to Reggie.
Thank you, Nancy. There are a couple of questions that are in the Q&A as well as in the chat. One of the questions was how does, and this had already been answered and was typed, how does Water Board's order on San Joaquin River work with diversions for recharge? Is DWR involved or is it just Bureau of Reclamation? It was answered that DWR answered that the DWR Sustainable Groundwater Management Office is coordinating with Reclamation and the Water Board to do as much aquifer recharge as possible. Secretary Garcia and Secretary Crowfoot, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I will just note for a point of clarification that this order does only deal with the Bureau of Reclamation's request. So it is just the Bureau of Reclamations. I just wanted to make that clear based on the response. And thank you for providing the response, Michael.
Yeah, and then I would just add that, ensuring that we can enable groundwater recharge in these rivers that are experiencing flood conditions is really, really important. And one thing that we need to make clear is if these rivers are experiencing flood emergencies, then those diversions can take place, including recharge, without the permitting process. That's really important to note. And that actually was utilized at times during January. And thanks to Secretary Garcia and Water Board, more broader recharge efforts that do require permitting have been streamlined through the Water Board. And I think that all of the permit applications that were submitted have been approved at this point. So we are very focused on trying to enable recharge where it's workable, both to reduce the flood risks on rivers, but also recharge groundwater basins.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Another question is a question on behalf of Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez. What are the resources being pre-positioned in areas which received less help in the prior winter storms in areas such as Arrowhead Lake, Arrowhead, in San Bernardino County?
There were significant resources that were sent to San Bernardino County, between CAL FIRE, the Guard. What I think may be kind of a bit of misinformation is that folks heard that the Guard was coming, but they didn't see the Guard. And the reason they didn't see the Guard is that they are, the Guard members are embedded in CAL FIRE hand crews, and they look just like a regular firefighter. So you wouldn't necessarily see them in uniforms. But there were high water vehicles. Caltrans had snow removal equipment. OES had snowcats and crews, fire crews embedded in the ICP there at the airport in San Bernardino. We'll just let you know that as of this morning, San Bernardino is deactivating some of the state resources because they believe that with what impacts that they will get through this storm system, they won't need our resources. So I think CAL FIRE has a couple of hand crews that will remain there until the morning, but then those will be deactivated by the request of the county starting tomorrow morning.
And
Thank
Nancy, I would just add, for those who are following, we have come a long way collectively to understand the impact of these atmospheric rivers and to help predict, where the storms will hit hardest. But there are plenty of surprises that Mother Nature still holds. And so, thanks to OES, they're positioned to move quickly to get assets where they're needed. For example, if certain areas receive more snow than was predicted, or flood conditions. But as Nancy noted, thanks to this atmospheric river predictions, as well as the governor's emergency actions, there are pre-positioned equipment and personnel across the state where we believe the impacts might be most acute.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Next is Northern Mendocino County residents are reporting that they are snowed in on very rural roads and have been so for over a week, especially in the Laytonville area. They are unable to evacuate because of the snow. We will be going to, we'll be following up. And again, there were some resources that had already been pre-positioned in Mendocino. So we will be sure to follow up with the Laytonville area.
Hey, Reggie, just a quick question for you. And you've repeated this before, but these are really important, questions that come in from real time on behalf of constituents. How do legislative offices get in contact with OES through your team?
They can go ahead and go through legislative affairs at caloes.ca.gov. We are actually working also in real time with multiple offices to both ground truth issues as well as provide information as well as connecting them to their local county reps as well.
And then maybe just drop that email into the and information into the chat just so folks can copy it down.
Okay, will do. And then another question is San Bernardino, that's obviously concerning. Can we talk about ongoing response in the area and projected impacts from the atmospheric rivers there this weekend in particular?
I can.
Yeah, Mike, do you want to take a, why don't you start in terms of what our modeling suggests?
Right. So the bulk of these storms are really focused more north of the San Bernardino area. The second atmospheric river, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, do extend down all the way down to San Diego, but the mountains around the Los Angeles basin area, including the San Bernardino Mountains, really only looking at 1.5 to 2 inches of precipitation, very different than the 15 or greater that we're seeing in the Sierra Nevada.
I would also add too that even though San Bernardino is releasing some of our state resources, we have a lot of mutual aid resources down in the greater Southern California area that we can tap into easily to be able to switch to an emergency situation should San Bernardino or any other county in Southern California need those resources. We are not pulling resources. We pulled one team from Orange County to come north, and that's all that we have taken out of Southern California.
Thank you, Madam Director. The next question is, do flood releases have any impact on SJ, which I believe would be San Joaquin River restoration flows?
I'll start with just a sort of general observation and welcome, Wade, if you have anything to add to this. I would say that, right now, obviously from an emergency preparedness standpoint, we're most concerned with the immediate impacts of the flood waters from an emergency standpoint, from a protection of life and property standpoint. We will see, I think, benefits from some of the flood waters, particularly those that can be diverted, hoping, of course, and leveraging to the extent we can our resources to ensure that these do lead to a positive benefit, hoping overall that there will be a positive benefit on the restoration flows in the San Joaquin and elsewhere.
Yeah, I think you said it really well, Jana, and I would just, underscore that, these storms, first and foremost, looking at protecting people and communities, and they generate significant water supply and improved river conditions, which is really great for our fish and wildlife and our water quality. So we do see, both the challenges that these storms provide, but then also the benefits. Mike, anything you wanted to add?
No, you both said it very well. So I think we're good there.
Thank you. Now, the next question is, thank you for everyone on this call for your work to keep California communities safe. What plans are in place to address communication outages, phone, voice over internet protocol, cell service that occur during the storm and impact 911 emergency services accessibility?
So Cal OES, a division of Cal OES, I should say, is our public safety communications folks who work not only with vendor suppliers, but also with the telecom companies to ensure and quickly restore communications. That said, there will be outages, there will be disruptions, there will be probably a lower level of service, I would say, without completely going down, but you may have interruptions on and off. But those are a high priority. Power is a high priority in these storms, and we'll work very closely. PG&E, SMUD, all of the telecom folks are here in the State Operations Center. So we have a direct line to prioritize and ensure that we can get these folks up and running as quickly as possible.
And then
Thank
Nancy,
you.
I would just add something that you always drill is just on the public message is to make sure that people are prepared for potential outages. I know a lot of us in Sacramento in January experienced extended outages. Certainly my family did too. So a key message to folks is to be prepared, to have those, flashlights and those charged cell phones ready to roll, to check in on neighbors, to keep in contact with family members. So while, there's remarkable work, that OES is leading to ensure that they can respond, there's a role that each of us can play in protecting ourselves and our families.
Absolutely.
And then another one is, will notes be provided regarding detailed information in this briefing? I believe Miranda, is that?
Sure. This is being recorded and we can definitely send out links. If you want to email me, I can put my email in the chat and send me whenever that link is available, I'll send it out.
Great.
Yeah, and Miranda, if it's possible, if there are folks that RSVP'd to this, if the participants RSVP'd, it'd be great to just get that link out to everybody. Obviously working in real time, so we want to provide that information as quickly as we can.
Yes.
With that, Nancy, was there anything else in regards to any additional information, declarations or proclamations?
No, I think Wade covered it up front. I'll just repeat that the governor has had 2 state of emergencies. The first one including 13 counties. The second one today that included 21 more. The State Operations Center is at its highest level 1, which means it's all state and federal agencies and our private sector partners 24/7, and we will be at that level through the atmospheric river systems that we are that Michael is amplifying for us. I would just say that, you know, if there are specific questions, specific areas of concern that members have, that please get in touch with us and Reggie's group, and we'll try and get back very specific information about what's going on in those specific areas. Happy to do that.
And maybe I just wanted to end, Nancy, on thanking, you know, your team and all the first responders out there. It's pretty incredible what folks are doing. And that's, you know, local fire and safety personnel and our CHP and Caltrans personnel. It is a really, we're all in this together. So it's been remarkable to see, and just huge thanks.
That's true, Wade. And when, you know, we're talking about these upcoming atmospheric rivers, but to be quite honest, these folks have actually been going at this from December 31st. So it really is a testament to their, you know, duty of service, quite frankly, that we can still call on them over and over, and they're at the ready for us, for sure.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Stay dry.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.